those who will not slip beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning down through its black waters to the place we cannot breathe, will never know the source from which we drink, the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. That is a poem called The Well of Grief by David White. The dark night of the soul. A curious phenomena, a well-known phenomena, something that many people on the spiritual path, the path of awakening, the path of enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, many experience this, and many don't as well. Marked by a strange sense of loss, bewilderment, absence, confusion, helplessness, but also freedom, serenity, a curious peace. In my experience of the dark night of the soul, it is the most... it defies words, so bear with me because I'm going to try and do the best I can with this to describe my experiences of it and hopefully give a little advice on if you're going through it and how to get through to the other side, if there is such a thing. But in my experience of this phenomena, it is the most curious mix of both light and dark simultaneously. It is the yin and the yang at the same time. There is, on one level, total confusion, fear, bewilderment, not knowing what to do. The willpower has gone. It's like you begin to watch yourself in action, but you're no longer sure that it's you that's doing it. You're not really sure where these decisions are coming from anymore. You don't know where your words are coming from. You don't know where your thoughts are coming from. It's all just an unfolding. It's just a happening. And every now and then as you catch this, there's confusion, maybe even panic. And there is a sense of loss, just a grief, a deep, deep grief that sometimes feels paralyzing. But then there is also this curious total serenity, total peace. It is like midnight with a full moon that shines brightly above you, glittering on the waves. An ever-present, still, calm light. As the poem suggests, the secret water, cold and clear. The source from which we drink. That cold, pure light is consciousness. Maybe you want to call it something else. Infinite universal consciousness, God. Brahman, whatever you want to call it. You know what it is when you get there. The secret water, cold and clear. Weird things start happening in the dark night of the soul. Strange things. It's going to be unique for everyone. And please feel free to share your experiences, because it might help somebody else. But I've had many bizarre experiences during the dark night of the soul. Time dilation. I wonder if anyone else has experienced that during the dark night of the soul. I haven't seen it mentioned that often, but for me, I could be up at I could be making my lunch. It's midday and I'm just putting my lunch together, going about my day, and then I just find myself sat on my bed at 9 o'clock in the morning on the same day. And I'm like, that's odd. I thought it was midday, and I'm checking the clock and time's gone backwards. Strange. Or the other way as well. Just like that sort of bewilderment of just, wait, hang on a minute, where did the day go? What's going on here? And this is different to conditions like depression and even just normal grief, because I've been through those things before and I know what they feel like, but this is different. And the marked difference for me is the curious background of peace that's there. It just simply always awake. D'Angelo says this really, really well. He says your instincts are different in this place, and it's true. Your instincts are different. You just know that it's all right. But this knowing is so deep. This knowing goes deeper. This is the secret water, cold and clear. Because this knowing goes beneath the mind, beneath the ego. The mind and the ego is panicking. What am I going to do? But consciousness never panics. And that is what you're experiencing. The other strange things I've had on the dark night of the soul is that sort of precognition. Just something, you just know something's about to happen. So I don't know. People do experience this sometimes anyway, where, do you ever you pick up your phone and as you're picking it up and bringing it to your ear, then it starts ringing? Something like that. Or you think about somebody, and you're thinking, you haven't thought about them in years, and then there's a knock at the door, and it's them. Precognition. Synchronicities, lots of synchronicities happening. For example, where I grew up, there was this castle on a hill. Well, it was a folly. It's an interesting little thing. It's a tower that was in the shape of a beer mug, an ale mug. Very curious thing, very unique. There's only one of them that exists anywhere. And I don't live there where I grew up now. And I happen to be walking through where I live now. And I looked and I saw there was a book in an antique shop that had this folly on the front cover. And I'd been thinking about that folly 2 days earlier. Out of nowhere, I hadn't thought about it since I was probably about 8 years old. Suddenly thinking about that, and then just walking down the street, and there it is. Strange, strange. We can explain all that away if we want to, but in this space you don't really care to. It just is. There is a curious back and forth between the turmoil and then the peace. Turmoil and then peace. You can find yourself just bewildered and lost. And life seems to just be stripping things away. Stripping things away. Things that you thought were pillars of your life. You thought that were the foundation of who you are beginning to just disappear. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? But in this space, it just isn't. Now, if you've been on the spiritual path and you find yourself in this space, then congratulations. This is what we were trying to do. So this is my first piece of advice here, is don't panic. You have succeeded. Now at this final stage, at this final part of your spiritual awakening, it's like reality sets in, quite literally. The reality sets in. You've been trying to get to this point of ego death. You've been trying to get to the point of relinquishing, to be not of the world, to be in the world but not of the world, to finally be free of your person, to be free of your fears and your desires, to be free of your attachments. This is what we've been trying to do. But then when it actually starts to happen, we panic. I use the analogy of jumping off a diving board. You stand on, it takes a while to bring yourself up to the edge. That's scary enough. Then you start to bounce and jump. That's scary enough. And then it's time to just jump, to just take the plunge. You may have been hesitating for a while. Eventually, you take the plunge. Now, some people just take the plunge and accept the terrifying drop into the water. But I believe, and this was true in my case, as I started to drop, I panicked, turned around and grabbed hold of the diving board. And then you get stuck. Now you're no longer on the diving board, but you're also no longer falling into the water. You're neither. You're in that weird limbo space in between. So if you're in the dark night of the soul and you want it to be over, let go. The water's fine. It is. Turning down through its black waters so that we can get to that, the source from which we drink. The secret water, cold and clear. Cold and clear. It's where we want to get to. No more suffering. No more confusion. No more fear. No more desire. Just pure peace, serenity. It's the place we were trying to get to. And if you've been sincere in your practice, if you have been diligent in your practice, and you've come to this place, you must know by this point the source of the suffering. You must have come to that realization at this point. The source of all your frustration, all of your suffering, all of your turmoil, all of your pain was the ego. That's the core element of all of it. And now it's finally being sucked into consciousness. It's finally being evaporated and dissolved. And that's why it's scary at this point, because it's a process as the ego dissolves. The dark cloud that now has the light of consciousness, the space in which to expand, the space in which to dissolve itself. If we wanted to use religious terminology, we could say the soul is returning to God. Whilst you still breathe, whilst you are still incarnate in this body, the soul is merging with God. The soul is merging with the Holy Spirit. We can use any of this terminology. It's all good. It's all beautiful. The merging of the Trinity. We could use that terminology if we wanted to. The soul coming home to God. He layeth me down in green pastures. That laying down, that sinking, that final rest, it's done. It's fine, it's over now. You let God take care of everything. You let the universe take care of everything. It turns out that this tiny little ego was never in control of anything at all. And so the illusion of control is dropping. The illusion of control is dropping, and that's why it's scary. because the ego wanted to believe that it was in control. The ego wanted to believe that it was in control, and it never was. It's not that you're losing control of your life. It's that you're realizing you never were in control of your life. That's why it's scary. You're still stuck in the old belief. The old belief that you were in control. So to use the spiritual terminology, we could say the ego thought it was in control. And it's the ego that needs to die to realize that it was never really here in the first place. It was an illusion, the Maya. This individual being, body, mind, that believed in the illusion of separation, that believed in the illusion, I am this temporary finite body, this temporary finite mind, that I am this thing. And I have to rush around in this world and control this and avoid this and move towards that. And then as this goes, you realize, oh, actually, now a great thing in the street seems any human nod, where moves in strange democracy the million masks of God. It is a strange democracy, this universe and this life. And you are just one of these masks of God that is just playing within this drama. And how marvelous and terrifying it can be at times. And if we wanted instead then to use the religious language, the more traditional terminology, we could say you have surrendered to God. Surrendered is when you finally realize that your rebellious ways, I do quite like some of this terminology, you were rebelling. You were rebelling against the natural order of things, thinking that you knew better. You take one look at the world and go, no, I don't like this. I've got a better idea. I have a better way of living. I don't like these natural laws. I don't like the natural way things are. I've got a better idea. That's the rebellion. That's the turning away from God. But now, after, the dark night of the soul, this whole terrifying journey has finally taught you, oh wow, I don't know better. I shall surrender my will. The surrendering of the will. That's what the dark night of the soul is. Surrender the will. I'm out. It's not on me anymore. I will do my best. I will be diligent, and I will be virtuous where possible, according to the will of the universe, according to the will of God. St. John of the Cross said, in the dark night of the soul, bright flows the river of God. Bright flows the river of the universe. Bright flows the river of Brahman. Whatever you want to say. Words are just words, ultimately. If you're in this space, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And how to get through it. Let go. Let go of that diving board. Let go. The old framework wasn't working, was it? Let's just be honest. Was the ego working for you? Really, was it? Were you really that in control? To quote Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, do you feel in charge? There are many very, very spiritual messages in even the blockbuster movies, and the Batman, the Nolan Batman films are full of them. Full of them. Trust me. Interestingly enough, Nolan also did Interstellar, and there's a wonderful line in that where the crew on the spaceship is getting sucked into the event horizon of a black hole, and obviously all of their equipment's going completely haywire and shuts down, time is dilating around them, and all of their controls, steering equipment stops working as well, and they all just sit back, and the sort of lead scientist just turns to the other and says, "There's nothing we can do at this point. All you can do is report and observe." And that is my best advice when it comes to the dark night of the soul. All you can do is report and observe. The synchronicity, I'm telling you, I'm glad I've captured this on camera. The synchronicity is crazy. I've just realised the dark night. The Dark Knight Rises. That's the one that Bane was in. The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight. That's what that trilogy was about. That's what it means. The Dark Night of the Soul. I didn't see the light until I was a man, and by that time it was nothing to me but blinding. That's a Bane quote right there. I was born in the dark, moulded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man, and by that time it was nothing to me but blinding. During this dark night of the soul, the light is blinding, blinding. But how marvellous it is. How wonderful and pure. How clear and serene. How silent. The silence, the silence, the silence. The silence of the mind. No more fear. No more sadness. And everything is revealed in its wonderful splendour. Everything revealed in its infinite beauty. The smallest thing. A seagull, a tiger, a rat, a mountain, a trash can. The snail that crawls up the wall, leaving a slimy, glittering trail. A blazing meteor across the sky. The fetid and rotting tree bark infested with fungus. The cry of a newborn. The laughter of children playing. Meeting the love of your life for the first time, and experiencing the agony of sickness. All is one. The secret water, cold and clear. The small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. Do not panic during the dark night of the soul. This is what we came here for. And as the old structures fall away, you will find the new structures have not yet been built. And in this time here, you shall fall through the well of grief. But there is no bottom. You are only afraid of the fall if you think you're going to hit the ground, but there is no ground. And once you become aware that there is no ground, you are no longer falling, you are flying. hope this video finds you well. Please feel free to share your experiences of the dark night of the soul, no matter how strange and wonderful they may be. Share them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's everything I have for you today. Take care, be well, and stay present.